Joining us now, NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, former U.S. ambassador to Russia Michael McFaul, he's also an MSNBC international affairs analyst, and Hagar Shamali, former spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the UN. Yamiche, I want to start with you at the White House. What else is the president saying this morning about how these meetings went? And to the extent that there are any preparations at this point, what do they look like for a meeting between Zelensky and Putin?
Well, President Trump is both saying that these meetings went well and that there is sort of progress to peace, but he's also acknowledging that President Putin might not want a deal at all, even though at another point he was saying that President Putin might make a deal just for him. He also said that President Putin, in some ways, is someone that's going to have to be critical to these discussions and that there's going to have to be a meeting between Ukraine and Russia before there can be this trilateral meeting. The president also, some critics would say, and some experts would say, was mirroring Russian talking points, and that he said it was insulting for Ukraine to try to join NATO, and that essentially the Ukraine was almost part of the reason why this war broke out in the first place. Other people, most European leaders, most viewers of this war would say, of course, that Ukraine was invaded by Russia and it's a sovereign country. But take a listen to what President Trump said in his conversation specifically about his relationship with President Putin.
Well, I think they expected it. I didn't do it in front of them. I thought that would be disrespectful to President Putin. I wouldn't do that because they have not had the warmest relations. I maintained a very good relationship. I mean, you saw that when he got off his plane, I got off my plane. There's a warmth there that you can't, there's a decent feeling. And it's a good thing, not a bad thing.
So again, the president saying that there's a warmth between him and President Putin, while also again saying that Ukraine was essentially insulting the world and Russia in particular when it tried to join NATO. So striking words there, Ali.
Yeah, not surprising that the president is relying once again, as he often has, on the personal diplomacy piece of this. But Mr. Ambassador, knowing Russia as you do, how do you think Vladimir Putin received those images yesterday out of the White House with the president alongside Zelensky as well as other top European leaders?
I think he's probably pretty relaxed about it because President Trump confuses a warm meeting, a nice handshake, with an outcome of consequence that advance America's national interests or the interests of our allies. He's just completely confused by that point. Did we get any concession out of Putin out of all of the red carpet treatment in Alaska? I can't think of a single thing that changed. Putin's had his position since 2022. He hasn't changed it. And so far, what we've had is negotiations about the ability to negotiate. There haven't actually been substantive negotiations yet. I applaud President Trump for trying to end this barbaric, horrific war. But I just don't see how this particular strategy, treating Putin, his excellency, his best friend, we have a warm relationship, has achieved anything substantive, anything tangible towards baby steps towards ending this war.
You are far from the only person expressing skepticism here. Hagar, French President Emmanuel Macron said he's not convinced that Russia is interested in peace right now. I want to play for you some of what he told my colleague Kristen Welker. Watch.
Great deal is a deal with security guarantees and a robust peace. As far as I'm concerned, when I look at the situation and the facts, I don't see President Putin really willing to get peace now. But perhaps I'm too pessimistic. But so I think it's very important to launch this process.
Hagar, what do you make of that assessment and what's informing Macron's mindset here?
You know, what's interesting is that Macron might have made the evolution that Trump will inevitably go through. Because if we all remember, Macron himself made overtures to Putin, much to our dismay, and tried himself to try and insert himself and try and get Putin toward peace and saw the reaction. And Zelensky has said that himself as well, right? The interesting thing here is that if you look at our history, both Republicans and Democrats have always wanted to collaborate with post-Cold War Russia. And the fact is that it's always been difficult and always been disappointing, even under Boris Yeltsin. And this is what perhaps President Trump needs to come to that conclusion as well. So he's going through those motions. And I think we have to understand that the Trump administration or President Trump himself he views this, while he may have a similar goal that the previous Biden administration did, which was, we can't appease a dictator. We certainly don't want Putin to continue trying to take more land or aggressing his other neighbors. At the same time, he views it from a different standpoint, which is practical, right? That he's looking at it from a pragmatic standpoint. He doesn't think Ukraine can win. He doesn't want to give all the aid Europe also doesn't want to give all the aid Ukraine needs to win this war effectively and push Russia back. So he's making this, going through the motions of trying to see if he can get a deal through his way. I would agree that I'm pessimistic that Putin will ever really negotiate in good faith.
Yeah, and I think the way that you're talking about the pragmatism is the way that others have said for Trump. It's just about a deal. Make a deal, any deal. And in order to do that, security guarantees is a very key piece. Yamiche, this was a bit of a live ball yesterday. What could that look like? Have you fleshed out any further details from your sources within the White House?
Well, it's really interesting you asked that because yesterday a big question was, will American boots actually be on the ground in Ukraine? Yesterday, when he was sitting next to the president of Ukraine, President Trump left that door open. But this morning, he slammed it shut in an interview with Fox News, saying that he assured Americans that no American troops will be involved on the ground when it comes to Ukraine. That being said, he is saying that he wants to see security guarantees for Ukraine. Take a listen to some of what he said.
They're not going to be a part of NATO, but we've got the European nations, and they'll front-load it, and they'll have some of them, France and Germany, a couple of them, UK. They want to have, boots on the ground. Not in. I don't think it's going to be a problem, to be honest with you. When it comes to security, they're willing to put people on the ground. We're willing to help them with things, especially probably if you could talk about by air, because there's nobody has the kind of stuff we have. Really, they don't have. But I don't think it's going to be a problem.
So there you have President Trump saying that maybe the United States would help out when it comes to some sort of weapons, aerial support, but again, underscoring that no American troops will be on the ground, which of course is a very big deal because his MAGA base, a lot of Republicans, and a lot of Americans around the country certainly don't want to see American troops be involved in another conflict, Ali.
Yeah, I think that was an important distinction for the president to make. Mr. Ambassador, we talked about Trump's relationship with Putin, but yesterday's Oval Office meeting between Trump and Zelensky put their relationship on display as well. Looked like a 180 from the blow-up between the two leaders that we saw back in February, though they had patched things up in subsequent meetings outside of Washington. Still, Zelensky wore a suit. He packed some barbs for the reporter that prompted him on that explosive meeting back in February. There were some laughs. How far does that kind of flattery and those sartorial changes actually matter here from a substantive perspective?
Well, of course, it's better than the fiasco from the last meeting where our president and vice president embarrassed the democratically elected leader of Ukraine. Some people compare him to Churchill for fighting against these barbaric imperial invasion. We should treat him with respect. And the president did that. I applaud that. Second, I thought it was very important to have all the European leaders there, including two European leaders, the prime minister from Italy, the president from Finland, that have a close personal relationship with Trump. That helped to set a better tone. And the issues like security guarantees and trying to get back the abducted children from Ukraine that Putin has kidnapped, those were on the agenda because all those people were there. That's good news as well. But I want to be clear here. A good meeting is not an outcome. This is a great meeting and a great photo op. But look at what Putin said today. The president keeps giving away his best cards before negotiations. Why is he taking NATO off the table? In diplomacy, you got to play your cards to get something back. And what I'm just struck by is the president just keeps giving away cards before they negotiate. He said no Americans on the ground. Why not trade that in a negotiation for something tangible?
I think another card that he has started to give away is the issue of land swaps. Hagar, how far apart is the U.S. from its allies on what would be some key components of a peace deal, specifically the idea of Ukraine, which has said repeatedly, we are not going to give up land that Putin took by force. Now Trump is saying, well, they could end this war if they wanted to. Yeah,
President Zelensky I thought he used his talking point on this was very interesting because he said, and he has repeated this, that Ukraine's constitution prevents him from ceding land. And when he says that, he's basically saying that it's not on him. It's on the people of Ukraine. It's on the constitution of Ukraine. And he has said that before, that if there were ever any kind of decision made related to Ukraine's land, it would need to be via a referendum for the people. It's up to the Ukrainian people. And I think that's a smart way, a strategy for him to play it, because it allows him to still be in the negotiating space without saying, listen, it's not me. I'm not trying to be the stubborn one here. I'm just telling you, this is our constitution. It's up to my Ukrainian people. We have a democracy. And if my Ukrainian people and the constitution say this, then I have to go according to that. What's interesting that you're going to have here is that Trump is still going to try and make this war painful for Putin. So even if, and by the way, and I want to mention this, that I have never seen, while I am very in favor of ending wars, rarely have I ever seen appeasing an aggressor work. In fact, history has proven that over and over again, that photo opportunities with dictators and so on only end up serving the dictator. That said, you have here Putin. Trump has shown a willingness to increase the pain on Putin, especially when he talks about preventing other countries from purchasing Russian oil. And so Putin does know what would happen on the other side of this. It's never going to be perfect, and we all have to appreciate that. And I like the ambassador. I commend President Trump for trying to reach an end to this because of this view that Ukraine is going to struggle to finish this war in this way. But I think that Zelensky, what he's doing is giving him the space. He's giving himself the space to negotiate. And on NATO, I would hope that they could say, while it might be unrealistic, to say that if Putin were to ever invade again, that it would trigger a NATO membership. I'm not sure that's possible. But you have to be very creative when it comes to dealing with Putin, who I don't think is falling anytime soon.